of the persons who were at the house and who alleged that Shameik was involved in the crime simply did not add up. They didn't add up the night of the crime. They didn't add up even further as they continued to do the investigation. And I'm very proud of the solicitor's office today for realizing this. A lot of times, Phil, we forget that the job of the prosecutor in this state and everywhere is not to put people in jail. The job of the prosecutor is to see that justice is done. And today, justice was done in Beaufort County.
Why, with the information that they knew at the outset, why did the police arrest him to begin with? Why did they wait a few days after receiving the complaint? And then why did they go to the high school, arrest him, put him in handcuffs, take him away, book in the whole deal? Why did all that happen?
You know, Phil, to me, I tell you that there is absolutely no reason it should have happened. And that has always been the moving issue in this case for me. When his grandmother, his mother, and Shameik came in to see me on Monday after he was released from jail on Saturday and told me what had happened, told me he had been with his girlfriend since 4 o'clock that afternoon until the police called at 1:30 and said for him to come back to his house, and woke his mother and his grandmother up. I have been astounded at how the situation went down. I think there truly is no good answer for why the police would have taken the steps they did in that case, because just like you said, this complaint was made on a Friday night. The puzzle pieces didn't fit from the entire beginning, because the incident allegedly happened about 11:15, and the 911 call was not made until 12:08, almost a full hour after this alleged theft had occurred. And from the very beginning, the police body camera video that was given, and of course there's been a lot of discussion in this country about body cameras, but in this case it was very, very useful to us. The police officer's body camera showed that from the very beginning, the officers had real serious questions about everybody's story here that was complaining about Shameik having done this. And what I still don't understand as we talk tonight is what transpired between the Saturday evening or Sunday morning when they interviewed Shameik and told him to go on to bed and sent him on into his house. And the next day when the police, without notifying anybody, went and got a warrant for his arrest, which was Sunday the 8th of February, and then waited until Friday the 14th of February to take it to school with 4 police officers and take him out in handcuffs. And his family doesn't understand it. His lawyer doesn't understand it. And Shameik doesn't understand it. So I can't give you any light on that.
Could there be any future legal action from the family towards the police over this?
Well, I think that is putting the cart before the horse. I think Shameik and his family at this point in time are focused on one thing, and that is getting him through the rest of his senior year. He's got final exams in 2 weeks, and then he reports to Carolina on the 30th of May. And like you indicated a few minutes ago, Shameik's been hurt the last couple of years, but he has worked tremendously hard to get himself back in shape. He is an incredible physical specimen for a defensive end, and I think Carolina's going to be very happy with him. He's a good young man. He's got good manners. He's just a real good guy, comes from a good family. And I don't think that they are thinking right now about wanting to do anything more. I think an apology would certainly be in order, but in my experience over 30 years, those usually don't come in this situation.
Talking with Thomas C. Taylor, the attorney for Shameik Blackshear, have you come up with a motive why the complainants would create this story, making this allegation against him?
I just really can't comment on that at all. I don't think anybody knows what went on in anybody's mind, except, again, as I told you, from the very beginning, when it takes somebody about an hour to place a phone call to try to put together a story or whatever else that happened, that's suspicious right there on its face. And there was never the first shred of physical evidence showing that Mr. Blackshear was anywhere near this house that night. In fact, he had an absolute alibi with Nautica, his girlfriend, who he was with the entire time. And once again, it's one of those almost crazy things that you never think can really happen to people, but it does. And thankfully, the judicial system worked well today. His record will be expunged, and all I can hope for is that the Carolina fans and everybody in the state will put this completely off of their agenda, not think about this. And when this young man comes up and makes a fine athlete and makes a fine student athlete, I hope everybody will be very proud of him as I am.
As far as you talked about earlier, the solicitor's job is to see that justice is done. Just your legal opinion, is there grounds to charge the accusers of false accusations or getting the police involved in making a false report?
I'm Shamik's lawyer, and I have had a conversation with him about this. And as I say, I believe Shamik and his family are focused totally on one thing, and that is on getting him graduated from Bluffton. He's got final exams coming up. He's got a statistics and probability exam, which he and I were both commiserating over today. And I really am not in the position and wouldn't give any type of legal opinion about what's out there with that. It's time to, I believe, put this behind us. Of course, I'm counting on the fact that Shamik is going to be welcome to Carolina, as he certainly should be, because the judicial process has worked. This should be treated just as if it had never even happened.
I know you're an attorney and not a doctor, but how does the knee look?
Well, I'll tell you what, I was sitting beside him in court today, and I was telling my wife earlier, that man is so big, and I'm no small person, but I was having to lean to my seat very hard to the right to get out of the way. And I slapped him on the knee one time and said, "How you doing?" And he looked at me and just smiled. So I think once Jimmy put this behind him today, he's going to be good to go. Don't forget, Phil, this is a 17-year-old young man. He's an incredible physical specimen, but he's 17 years old. And when his mama and his grandmama hugged me in tears as we left the courtroom today, it reminded me that, this is really, these are young people who still haven't fully developed into adulthood. And, he got dragged over into jail and stayed the night in jail because of this. And it's really a shame this kind of thing has to happen.
Boy, certainly sounds that way. Mr. Taylor, thank you so much for visiting with us and giving us the insight from your perspective. Congratulations once again, and look forward to talking to you again sometime in the future about something beyond court cases.
Thank you for having me, Phil. Have a good night.
Thank you, sir. All right, Thomas C. Taylor from Hilton Head. Hey, if you need a good attorney, give Mr. Taylor a call. He'll take good care of you. Boy, that's just a weird deal. So, apparently the accusers just made it all up. Just flat made it all up.
Just jealousy or whatever we got to think of it. He thinks he's the big man on campus. Let's knock it down a peg.
I don't know. But then again, you also have to question the action of the police for, going to the school and putting handcuffs on him and putting him in jail overnight with no good hard evidence, apparently. Thanks again to Thomas C. Taylor for visiting with us here on Sports Talk. Another couple of quick important notes. USC basketball player Demetrius Henry announced today on Twitter he is transferring. 6'9" big man had been suspended. Prior to being suspended, he had started every game for the Gamecocks, averaging 6 points and over 3 rebounds a game. No word from Shameik Shepherd about his future plans. Of course, he also was suspended on February 17th. So he has not announced what he is going to do. Former Clemson basketball player Rod Hall is going to give pro football a shot. Agents have been courting Hall for a chance to help him extend his career as a point guard, but also he's getting phone calls from NFL teams. I've seen some video of him, and according to the Greenville News, they've contacted him and also Clemson assistant basketball coach Steve Smith, and some workouts have been scheduled for Thursday for football for Rod Hall, who did play high school football, a receiver in high school in Augusta. So good luck to him there. Quickly to the phones we go. We'll have Tony Elliott joining us here after the bottom of the hour break. Mike in Chester, you're up on Sports Talk. Welcome in. How are you?
Yeah, brothers. How y'all doing?
Terrific.
Good. I just had a few questions. The first, the Carolina commitment, the running back C.J. Freeland.
Yes.
I saw where he is going to Virginia Tech spring game this weekend, and I think he goes to high school with a guy that's already committed to Virginia Tech. I just wanted to get your take on that. And also, did you see what the Panthers and the Cowboys are scheduled to play on Thanksgiving Day? That's the first Thanksgiving Day game the Panthers have been in ever.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. More importantly, that night, the Packers and the Bears are going to play at Lambeau Field on Thanksgiving night.
The schedule now, it's not supposed to be announced to you.
And Brett Favre will have his number 4 retired that night in Green Bay.
Oh, okay.
First time the Packers have played at home on Thanksgiving since 1923. It's the Bears. They're playing the Bears.
Well, you know what they're doing this year,
in Green Bay.
They are actually, and I don't know if this is going to work or not. This is the 50th year coming up for the Super Bowl. So they're taking old matchups, old Super Bowls, and putting those teams together throughout the season.
I'd be happy to have a rematch in the Super Bowl of the first Super Bowl. Let's get the Packers and Kansas City. Yeah. Or number 2, Green Bay. And well, as long as Green Bay is in it, it'll be fine. I think that you got to watch that. Listen, with these commitments this early, if they're still taking visits and they're still going to spring games, you have to be concerned about it. Freeman has said even after he committed, he was going to take other visits. He was going to take other official visits. So nothing is going to be solid with him until December. He's going to be an early graduate. And until he signs that early letter of intent or early financial aid agreement, then shows up in January, you're not going to know for sure. He might reaffirm his commitment at some point in time. I think South Carolina has got to, of course, continue to recruit him very hard, as any school does with any commitment who is taking other visits, which really is the vast majority of these early commitments right now. They're still visiting. A lot of players are checking out other opportunities, sometimes just for the heck of it and sometimes seriously. Thanks for the call. Tony Elliott coming up after the break. Okay, we're back at Sports Talk, South Carolina Radio Network. Good to have you with us wherever you are dialed in around the state tonight on a beautiful night in South Carolina to talk some Clemson football. Tigers wrapped up spring practice a couple of weeks ago, and we welcome in co-offensive coordinator Tony Elliott to Sports Talk. He's been on the road recruiting, but we're going to give him a break from talking to all the recruits and their coaches to talk to us for a couple of minutes. Coach, how are you?
I'm doing well. Appreciate you having me, and I appreciate the break as well.
Yeah, I know. Your lips are probably tired from all the talking to recruits and coaches and everything. How's it going out there for you recruiting-wise? It certainly looks like Clemson's putting together another fabulous class, and the reception you're receiving, how's it been?
Oh, it's been very well. I mean, we're very fortunate, very blessed at Clemson to have a great university, a great football program to sell. The brand is to a point now where it speaks for itself. So the reception is very well when we go into schools, and it's been good. Only been on the road now for 2 days, so the energy level is up, and things are going well.
Well, the co-offensive coordinator deal with you and Coach Scott, one game, bowl game, things went very well. You're 1 for 1, so you got to feel good about that. How do you feel you two are working together here over these months, and will continue to work as you head toward the season? How smooth is it between you two?
It's been very smooth. I couldn't ask for a better person to be in this position with. The relationship goes beyond just working together at Clemson. Goes back to our playing days, and again, we're both guys that are about the right things. We're passionate about Clemson, and we respect each other's body of work, and we know that we both bring something different to the table, and we respect that, and we're working well together.
Have you gotten to the point, really, I mean, you're not twins, you're not brothers,
Right.
blood related, but have you kind of gotten to the point professionally where one of you might be thinking along this particular line and the other one will pick up and kind of join right in? You're that familiar with each one of your way of thinking?
Yeah, that's a fair assessment. Again, we've been together on staff together now for 4 years, going into 5. So we sat in the same meeting room, and we kind of study each other just like we study the game. And so we kind of, not to the point to where we can fill out each other's sentences, but we think similar in a lot of things, and it's helpful to have a guy that knows me, but then also has his own little things that he brings to the table as well. So it's good.
You guys on offense, though, you look at the staff with Chad Morris gone. It's awfully young in the position of the play calling, with the exception of Dabo. I mean, you've got Jeff, and you've got Coach Streeter, working with the quarterbacks. 3 pretty young guys working on the offensive side. Do you see that? How do you view that? Do you see that as a negative in any way from an experience standpoint?
I think, just talking about Coach Streeter has been in the position as an offensive coordinator for several years. So he has obviously a little bit more experience in the position than Jeff and I do, and that's a benefit to us because he's able to help us in some of the areas where we're growing. I don't see it as a negative. We were very fortunate to work alongside Chad, and those 4 years were tremendous because he left us with a big wealth of knowledge, a great foundation. And I know some people may see that as a negative just because we haven't, been around it. But Jeff, he grew up in football. His dad was an offensive coordinator for a national championship team. You got Coach Sweeney, you got Coach McCorvey in the building. So there's a lot of experience that is able to help us in situations where we may not have seen this particular situation, but we got people to lean on to help us get through it.
All right, as far as your spring practice goes, you went without Deshaun Watson, of course, throughout the spring. Update his status for us from what you've gotten from him and what you saw of him in the spring as he continues to rehab the knee. How confident are you guys that he's on the right road back and will be 100% when you're ready to go back to camp?
I feel very confident. Our training staff, Danny Poole and his staff, they do a tremendous job of bringing these guys back from injury. And again, Deshaun's a worker. He's going to do everything within his power to make sure that he's ready. And I tell you what, he was a tremendous help this spring because, again, he was limited from a physical standpoint and getting out there in practices. But every every competitive drill that we had, he was right behind, far enough to be out of the action, but he was right behind taking mental reps, tutoring the young quarterbacks. So again, I got full confidence that he'll be ready to go once he gets his final clearance. But just looking at him physically, he looks good. He's moving around good, so I'm confident that he'll be back 100% when we need him to. As
you know, in his short time at Clemson, he's had a shoulder, he's had a finger, now he's had the knee. Do you want to be more protective of him in some form or fashion this season, or is it just going to be that risk factor with him because of the way he plays and the way that you use him?
I think, with who he is and what he does, he plays on the edge, and that's what makes him special. And again, obviously, as a coach, you always want to keep that in mind to make sure that you protect your players. But we're going to have to let him go out and play. And again, he'll figure it out, just like I learned as I was coaching Andre Ellington. As they mature, they learn how to protect themselves a little bit better.
Mm. Now, as far as Chad Morris, that some people would, kind of gleefully say the mad scientist, once he got in a rhythm, it was like dump, play after play after play. Will you try to retain that quick rhythm, but also because of the embarrassment of riches that you have at running back, can we see a Clemson a team not only with the quick strike, but to also shove it down a team's throat and go 80 yards over ground?
Right. That's the focus area for us, is to be able to become more consistent running the football. And again, we're in a situation where we're very blessed at the position where we got depth, something that I didn't have, coaching the position the first couple of years. And again, a lot of it's going to be dictated on what the defense does. And again, we want to make sure that we're aggressive when we attack, but at the same time, we want to be sound and make sure that we can take advantage of what's out there.
Talking with Tony Elliott, Clemson co-offensive coordinator. What is your biggest concern offensively coming out of spring practice?
The biggest concern, I would say, is just maintaining, the gains that we made. I thought it was a very, very productive spring. Obviously, the timing of Deshaun getting back and him being able to get in the rhythm this summer by the time we crank it up in fall camp. The depth at tight end is something that we got to get those guys healthy. We made it through the spring, and it was good for the young guys because they got a lot of reps. But we also had one that got injured that didn't get quite as many reps as we wanted him to. So probably the biggest concern is just the depth at tight end and being able to maintain the gains that we had this spring.
Of course, it'll be Deshaun's job when you go back to camp at quarterback. Nick Schuessler obviously had a very good spring and is in the mix there, maybe pretty solid as number 2. What about the 2 freshmen, Kelly Bryant, Tucker Israel? Have you guys decided who is going to be active and compete for that number 2 job, and which one you're going to redshirt this coming year, if you decide to redshirt one of them?
Yeah, that decision won't be made. The redshirt decision won't be made until we get into fall camp. And trying to distinguish between the two, I think it's still too early to tell. You got to give them some opportunities in fall camp to be able to see them in some live action. Obviously, in the spring, because of the situation, we're really more cautious of allowing those guys to get hit. But there's going to be some opportunities where you got to see them perform under live bullets. So that decision won't be made until we get into fall camp.
How good was Artavis Scott in the spring, in your opinion?
I thought he made progress. One of the things that we challenged him to do is to be a great receiver as well. We all know that once he gets the ball in his hand after the catch, he's as good as anybody that's out there. And we really challenged him to progress. So I thought that he had a good spring. You saw some areas of improvement, but he's also a gamer too. And we know that we got to get him to continue to work every day so that when he does turn it on game day, it's that much better.
Well, I know it was a very good spring. You had 37,000 at the spring game, so Tiger fans are excited. I know you guys are excited and probably can't wait for August to get here so you can get back to work on the field.
Oh, that's exactly right. I tell you what, we got the best fan base in the country, and they came out and they supported. And the guys feed off of it, and so that's going to carry the momentum into this off season in terms of the summer and then fall camp. And yeah, we're excited. We feel like we got some pieces falling in place on offense. We're excited about the opportunity to improve in the running game. There's a couple things we're going to study this summer, including ourselves, but also some other programs to see where we can get better, specifically in the red zone and then also in some of our short yardage packages. So, we got a busy summer, but we're excited to get to work.
Tony, thank you so much for being with us. We certainly appreciate it. Good luck out there on the recruiting trail. Look forward to seeing you this upcoming season. Clemson co-offensive coordinator Tony Elliott here on Sports Talk. All right, time for our Braves Report here on Sports Talk. Mike Morgan joining us for our Braves Reports, and our Braves Report is brought to you by Play It Again Sports off Bauer Parkway in Columbia. Also presented by Founders Credit Union, helping South Carolinians attain their financial goals. And we welcome in Mike Morgan with our Braves report tonight. The Braves opening up a big series. I know it's early, but they are playing division rival team in the lead in their division, the New York Mets in New York, Mike. So it's a big early season series and a chance for the Braves to kind of measure themselves against the team that's setting the pace in the division.
Yeah, and I think it's a good measuring stick. I think most people still, despite what the records are here in late April, think Washington is the class of the division, if not the entire National League. But I think there's a lot of doubt as to who is that number 2 team in this division, at least on paper. And, right now that's kind of hard to say. Obviously, the Mets are making a strong statement. I don't think the Mets are flukish. I do think that they've done a lot of good things in retooling this franchise after, let's face it, has been an abysmal period in time of give or take 5 years, actually a little bit more. I mean, really, the Mets were sunk, if you go back to the 2006 NLCS against the Cardinals. A guy by the name of So Taguchi hit a big home run in that game. Later, Yadier Molina hit another big home run, and they came from nowhere to defeat the Mets, a team that everybody thought was going to the World Series. The Cardinals won the World Series that year, and the Mets have been a dumpster fire ever since. But what they've done the last few years in cutting the fat, in making smart moves, in building up young, they've got some great young arms. Now, fortunately, the Braves missed the best young arm that they have in Matt Harvey. So that's the good news. Now the question is, how do you win games with guys like Cahill and Stoltz on the mound for your squad, which is clearly the lesser part of the rotation? That's what the Braves will toe to the rubber here tonight and then tomorrow. So we'll see how they fare considering that.
All right, roster move today. Left-hander Andrew McCarahan, he goes on the suspended list for 80 days for PEDs. And they call up Ian Thomas, a left-hander from Gwinnett. What does all that mean?
Well, the first one is a guy that we didn't really know much about, quite honestly. I mean, he's not a guy that's been in the organization for long and didn't do a whole lot. So it'll just make it that much easier to remove themselves from it, because when you get popped for 80 games and you don't have much of a career behind you, that doesn't really spell good things ahead in all likelihood. Ian Thomas is a guy, if you recall, was actually on the opening day roster last year and got some action. He's a great kind of one of those diamond in the rough type stories, and then eventually wound up pitching back in the minors, and now he'll get the call up. These are not impact guys, but these are guys that you do have to rely on in that bullpen, which as we've talked about. The back end, pretty good. The middle, not so good. And you just keep losing one guy after another, whether it's injuries or something else like this. And obviously, it's not a good thing for anybody involved.
What about the change at shortstop tonight? A guy that the Braves had hoped for and still have hope for, Jace Peterson, not hitting well. So in comes Gosselin in his place tonight.
Yeah, Gosselin will start at second and hitting the 8 hole. And, Gosselin's a guy that, again, hit 300 for most of the season at Gwinnett. You don't do that in AAA as a fluke typically. 300 is 300, particularly in this day and age without PEDs and with lower offensive numbers. So Gosselin's a guy they feel pretty confident in. The Jace Peterson situation, as good a story as it is, I've never been sold that that's going to last forever. And I still think by year's end, if he can figure out how to hit the baseball more consistently, the guy that they want to take over that job is not Gosselin or Peterson. The guy that they want to take over that job is Jose Peraza, who's playing in Gwinnett right now in AAA. Now, he's not exactly tearing it up, but they would love for him to get there, because not only is he a slick fielder, but he's got tremendous speed and could be the ideal leadoff man that this team really still misses. I mean, I know they got Maben in the leadoff hole tonight. We've seen other guys, but I don't think they have a great leadoff guy in the roster as we speak.
All right, Mike, thank you very much. We appreciate it. And Gosselin, of course, had the game-winning hit for the Braves when they beat the Mets back on April the 10th. Had an RBI single in the 8th inning of that game to get the winning run home. So, maybe the success he had in that game is figuring into their thinking by putting him in the lineup tonight. We shall see how that pays off for the Braves. Mike Morgan, our Braves report here on Sports Talk. A lot of recruiting coming up in a moment. All right, to recruiting we go. First in basketball, update on Tevin Mack. Did not meet with Oklahoma State Sunday as planned because the weather prevented the Cowboys coaches from traveling. Kansas head coach Bill Self was scheduled to meet with Mack today in Columbia. This is according to Mack's mother, who told us this last night. He met with Texas assistant coach Mike Morrell on Friday. His mom said that they saw USC coach Frank Martin Sunday at a basketball banquet in Columbia, but did not have a conversation with him. And Ms. Mack said that she talked with USC assistant Lamont Evans on Thursday. Over the weekend, she talked with coaches from Clemson and Georgia. Ms. Mack said they've not yet scheduled any visits, which will have to be unofficial because all the official visits have been used. But as of last night, they were looking at USC, Georgia, and Texas for possible visits. 6'6" Malik Ellison, Burlington, New Jersey. Of course, made his official to USC over the weekend. He talked with Gamecock coaches on the phone Monday. He met with St. John's and Rutgers today. He was offered by St. John's. He already has a Rutgers offer. He will take an unofficial to St. John's Monday. He's taken officials to USC and Minnesota. He has not scheduled any others. 6'6" Durante Jenkins, 2016 prospect, the former Lake Marion standout, now at a prep school in Orlando, back home this week for spring break. Plans to visit Clemson Wednesday. USC, so that could change because of his AAU practice Thursday in Spartanburg. He has an offer from Clemson and has been favoring the Tigers since getting the offer last December. He also has offers from East Carolina, Houston, New Mexico, South Florida, Virginia Tech. USC, Tennessee are also showing interest. John Rothstein of CBSSports.com reports that Brown University rising senior Raphael Maha, who is transferring, will have home visits in Providence with USC, Nebraska, and Rice, and he plans to take official visits to Southern Cal and Pittsburgh. He's a native of Brazil. He's one of those rising seniors, as I mentioned, who will have 1 year of eligibility at his new school. Football, USC offensive line target Branton Autry, Coffeyville Junior College in Kansas. USC's in good shape with him. in regular contact with offensive line coach Sean Elliott. Expects Elliott to visit him this week. When he gets around to lining up his officials, he said USC will get one. Some of the other offers are Arizona State, Florida, Arkansas, Missouri, Ole Miss, Southern Miss, Oklahoma, Kansas State, Louisville, and Iowa State. Arizona State has been the only school to visit him thus far. As I wrap up recruiting tonight, I want to take a moment here to pass along our condolences to a close friend, a longtime friend of Sports Talk, a former fellow employee here with us, Jimmy Johnson, not the race car driver. This is Jimmy Johnson. Many of you Gamecock fans and Clemson fans will know him. He's a longtime South Carolina fan, worked for Defender Industries up in Greenville. Unfortunately, he passed away overnight. We are very, very saddened to hear that news, and we ask you to think of Jimmy Johnson and his family tonight. And top of the hour break, we'll be back.
Live from Columbia, this is Sports Talk on the South Carolina Radio Network. Be a part of tonight's show. Call us at 800-956-7266 or email talkback@sportstalksc.com. Now, here are your hosts for Sports Talk, Phil Kornbluth, Kevin McCrary, and Tom Hayes.
Okay, we are back with you here on Sports Talk South Carolina Radio Network. What a terrific first hour we had with Thomas Taylor, the attorney for Shamik Blackshear, joining us, and then Tony Elliott, Mike Morgan, and recruiting. Coming up, David Shelton from the high school sport will join us here in just a couple of minutes to help us make some sense of what the high school league executive committee is doing.
That'd be a neat trick.
Yeah. And what it means to go to 5 classifications and what he thinks will happen moving forward with these private schools. David will join us coming up. Chip Weil from Darlington will be here. Another piece of sad news today, the passing of Steve Burns, the Fox NASCAR pit reporter who was so beloved by the NASCAR people. You know, the race Sunday at Bristol was totally dedicated to him. I didn't realize from watching that he was that close to death. But he passed away today from cancer. Yeah, man, that just breaks my heart too. But again, our good friend Jimmy Johnson passing away overnight is really upsetting to me personally, because he was such a good friend of ours and, gosh, so loved in the Gamecock community by so many people, and had a lot of Clemson fans too, no question about it. Now, he irritated a lot of Clemson fans, I'm sure, because he was so gung-ho Gamecocks, but I was just torn up to hear that news about him today. David Shelton will join us here in just a little bit, and look forward to having him with us. A couple of other notes to pass along. The Big South Golf Championship, Charleston Southern wins it. 11 under par. Congratulations to Charleston Southern. This played at the Patriot at Grand Harbor up in 96. They win by 6 shots over Campbell, by 8 shots over Winthrop. Coastal was 4th, finishing at even par. Presbyterian plus 15 finished 7th. The medalist was R.J. Cure from Charleston Southern. He shot 8 under par. Southern Conference Golf Championship went to a playoff at East Tennessee State, defeated Greensboro to win the championship. Chattanooga was 3rd. Wofford finished 4th. The medalist was J.T. Poston of Western Carolina, who won in a playoff with Adrian Maroc from East Tennessee. And let's see. Duke picked up a major basketball commitment today, as they always do. But the Blue Devils land their point guard of the future in Derek Thornton. He's supposed to be a very, very good point guard. Of course, you know, Duke, one of those programs that they don't really recruit, they just select. And so Thornton is going to reclassify. He was going to be in the 2016 class. He's reclassifying to 2015. How do you do that? Now he's got to get credits at his prep school in order to graduate and qualify for acceptance to Duke. He's 6'2". He's from California, and apparently he's a great player. And he's going to Duke, which means he'll be a very young freshman if he reclassifies down. David Shelton coming up. let's update the baseball. Georgia and Clemson underway in Athens. This game is on the SEC network. So since I told you that, if you turn to it, you have to keep us on. Turn the sound down, listen to us, but watch the game. Georgia has taken a 1-0 lead. Double to left field has scored a run in the bottom of the first for the Bulldogs off of Brody Kerner. 1-0 Georgia. Furman in South Carolina playing at Fluor Field in Greenville. They are scoreless in the bottom of the first. Reed Scott on the mound for the Gamecocks. We welcome in to Sports Talk our high school football analyst, insider, and expert, and overall good guy, David Shelton from the High School Sports Report, also the Charleston Post and Courier. David, how you doing?
I'm good. I'm just watching the girls' lower state lacrosse championship.
Yeah, I know you're loving that.
It's an interesting sport. I'll just say that.
Who's playing?
Bishop.
What class is Bishop England in today?
Well, this is lacrosse is an open class, so they would be classified as 4A today.
Is that right? All right, let's talk about the executive committee's action today, beginning in 2016-17. We're going to have 5 classes in South Carolina. What's this all going to mean?
Well, I think what it's going to mean is it's long overdue. I think it's going to be a little more equity in terms of enrollment, teams playing teams that are more closer to them in enrollment. I think the other action, basically, this takes care of that other thing about the private schools being bumped up. This will take care of that.
Oh, really?
Which I said all along. Oh, yeah, because I was just, Bishop England is involved in this, and the athletic director, Paul Rooney, and I were talking a while ago, and he's like, we'll be 3A under a 5-class system, so that's what everybody wants. And Christ Church would go to 2A, and so would St. Joe's. So, all the griping about move them up, this will take care of that. All 3 of those programs will be bumped up, depending on how they break it down numbers-wise now. I mean, I could be way out. But the theory is that they start at 0 and go to about 300 students and make that Class A. Mm-hmm. Then they'll go at the top Wando, which is about 3,900, and go down to about 1,700, and that'll be 5A. And then the next 3 classes will be everybody in between that. They'll do it in an equal number. Well, Rooney and Bishop England would fall in that 3A category. And, now if they decide to do it a different way, numbers-wise, that might change, but I think that's what's going to happen. I think the executive committee did a smart thing because I think lawsuits were ready to happen, and I don't think they need any lawsuits with the forcing a school to move up. The theory was, okay, Bishop England, you're going to be reclassified 3A, then we're going to bump you up 1 to 4A. That would be crazy. I mean, they got 700 students playing against 1,600 schools. So, I think it's all going to work out. I think the 5-class system is long overdue. I think it's a perfect system. Well, I wouldn't say perfect, but it's a good system, and I think it'll work out just fine.
What will this mean football-wise from a playoff standpoint? Because is this going to eliminate the double championships in classes?
Well, yeah, that was one of the impetuses for doing that. No more 2A, double A, 2A state champions, 2 1A state champions, 2 4A state champions. It'll go to 5 champions in every sport. And, so Gillon would be basically moved up to 3A, which is probably where they belong anyway. Mm-hmm. And so they'll be playing in 3A and it'll all shake out. You can look at the numbers and just kind of figure out there's going to be about 35 to 40 schools in each classification. So when you break it down, that's basically how it's going to work out, and then you'll have 5 state champions in every sport. The more challenging thing, Phil, is going to be regions.
Yeah.
Figuring out who's going to be in what region and how they're going to compete. But they got a whole year to work that out. So, logistically there are some concerns, but I really think everybody's going to be happier with it. The majority of the people will be happier with this in the long run.
With the number of schools you are projecting in each class, do you think they'll go with a smaller number of regions with more schools in them, or a larger number of regions with smaller number of schools in each region?
Well, I think what they'll have to do first is look at location and look at proximity and travel. If they could work it out to where they could have fewer classifications with, say 7 or 8. Well, there would never be that many. I think the biggest region would probably be 16. So I think, you look at travel that way. Maybe you have, if there's 42, you'd have 7 16 regions or 6 17 regions or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
You could go 8 5-team regions, depending on where the numbers break. But I don't think you'll see that many less regions. But I think what you're going to see is some may have 6 or 7 or 8 teams, and others may have 4, which will just allow them to play out of conference. And it'll be a point system for playoffs anyway. So it's going to be basically you got to win games and beat good teams to get into the playoffs.
Let me ask you this. So you're saying, the private schools are going to be bumped up to these next level classifications, and you feel like that's going to solve the problem. But now with the private schools competing against the schools in their respective classifications, will that end the griping and the finger pointing at the private schools about how they acquire their athletes, and the fact that they do have greater territory to attract students and athletes than your typical high school?
No, I don't think that's going to end the complaining by some schools. I think for the most part, it will. I mean, if the whole logic behind the move them up was to make them compete against schools more their size, just does that. And there's still going to be quote unquote recruiting. I hate to even use that word because in 2015, you ought to be able to let your kid go wherever he wants to go to school. But it will not eliminate that. But I think it just makes everybody happier that now, let's say Christchurch is now going to have to play for the 2A state title, and Bishop England's soccer teams are going to have to play in 3A. If that's what people want, then they're going to get that. Do I think Christchurch will not continue winning football? No, I still think they're going to continue to win.
Mm-hmm.
They'll just be, instead of the 1A state champs, Division I, they'll be the 2A, state champs. So, again, it kind of depends on how the numbers break out and how the high school league will figure all that out. But I think it's long overdue, and I think this will, it will quiet it a little bit. Those people that were complaining, saying they need to play upper class, well, now they're playing upper class. So,
all right.
Move on.
All right, and now here on Sports Talk, our first ever live scoring update from a lacrosse game. They call them games or they matches? What are they in lacrosse?
You know what? I don't know.
I think it's a match.
I think it's a match. Well,
I think it's a match.
What is the score?
Well, the score at halftime is Bishop England 7, Wando 0.
Oh.
And these are, granted, they're two big rivals in every sport, but there's only 5 teams in girls lacrosse in Charleston, and these are clearly the 2 best teams. And they played to a 15-14 double overtime game earlier this year, or match. Mm-hmm. But it's 7-0 right now, and Bishop England is firmly in control.
Well, did you know that Jim Brown was All-American lacrosse player, and he says playing lacrosse at Syracuse strengthens his upper body for those vicious stiff arms he'd use in the NFL. Also, the Native Americans invented the game to prepare for war. They played the game to prepare for battle.
There you go. David?
Wow, now that I did not know. I may use that.
Hey, we thank you very much, and I'll get back to you soon. I got some news about the high school season you'd be interested in. I'll get that to you in a little bit. And we thank you for your contribution as always. David Shelton, our good buddy from the High School Sports Report and also from the Charleston Post and Courier. Look for his report on the Wando Bishop England lacrosse match in the paper tomorrow. Back in a moment. right, thanks to David Shelton for joining us tonight here on Sports Talk. Always good hearing from David. Let's update baseball, and it's not going well for Clemson in Athens. It's 4-0 Georgia, a 4-spot for the Bulldogs in the bottom of the first inning. They were helped by an error on the Tigers, and Georgia has taken the 4-0 lead. There was an RBI double. There was a single to center field that scored 2 runs, both unearned. Then another single to right, RBI, unearned. So 3 unearned runs in that inning of the 4 runs by Georgia.
It all was scored with 2 out.
The error was on third.
Glenn Batson.
Yeah. All right, so 4-0. Clemson does have a runner on with 2 out in the top of the second. South Carolina Furman, bottom of the second. They are scoreless. Neither team has a hit at this point. So you're up to date on those baseball games. Clemson today issued a statement called the Clemson Will for student athletes. And pretty interesting stuff. Basically, it's what Clemson is promising student athletes that come there. The document outlines the promises we make to any student athlete who puts on the orange and purple to represent Clemson. This is from Dan Radakovich. The Clemson Will outlines the athletic department's pledge to provide student athletes with the tools to accomplish the department's mission of excellence in academics, athletics, and personal, professional, and social development. In a structure guided by the 12 items listed in Mr. Clemson's will, the Clemson Athletic Department has developed the 12 tenets listed below. Clemson will guarantee all scholarship athletes receive a 4-year commitment from the institution. As such, no scholarship shall be reduced or removed on the basis of ability, performance, or contribution to a team's success because of an injury, illness, or physical or mental medical condition, or for any other athletic reason. Clemson will provide cost of attendance as determined by the institution's Office of Student Financial Aid for all athletes above the tuition and fees set forth in the financial aid agreement as allowed by NCAA and ACC rules and regulations. Clemson will, through Tiger Trusts, provide an opportunity for all athletes who have exhausted eligibility or left early for the pros, the opportunity to return to Clemson to earn their degrees, undergraduate, if they left the university in good standing. Any athlete with fewer than 45 credit hours remaining toward graduation who has been readmitted to the university and into the Tiger Trust will receive scholarship assistance from the athletic department and IPTAY. Clemson will give athletes comprehensive academic support through Vickery Hall, the nation's first standalone student-athlete academic support facility. I'll give you the rest of these tenets in a moment. right, here's the rest of the tenets in the Clemson will, as put out by Dan Radakovich today. Just a couple of more here. Clemson will develop athletes both away from the fields and courts of play and the classroom, providing life skills lessons, which include career development, networking, etiquette, and social programming. Clemson will have top quality comprehensive health care for all athletes, including preventive care, rehabilitation, and mental wellness. Clemson will develop programs encouraging community engagement and service through individual, team, and department-wide participation. Clemson will provide every athlete an opportunity to have a voice in policy and administrative decisions of the athletic department. Clemson will develop athletes through elite strength and conditioning programs while maximizing potential and results through individualized nutrition programs to build physical wellness along with speed, strength, and endurance. Clemson will continue to furnish nation-leading facilities for every sport. Current plans include more than $175 million in new and upgraded facilities in the next few years alone. Clemson will develop student athletes on the fields and courts of play, providing nation-leading coaching and instruction. And lastly, Clemson will compete for championships. Those are your tenets as Clemson Athletics introduced the Clemson will for student athletes. All right, there you go. Let's welcome into the program now as we take a couple of minutes to discuss NASCAR and the race this past weekend at Bristol. Chip Weil, the president of Darlington Raceway, joins us, and we mentioned this earlier in the program. I know this is a tough day for everyone in the NASCAR family and the Fox Sports family with the passing of Steve Burns today. How well did you know him?
Yeah, I knew Steve really well. He's been a staple in the garage for my entire career, and man, my heart just goes out to his wife and young son who's in 6th grade. It's tough to lose a parent, but certainly not when you're a teenager. So Steve was one of those guys, just a polarizing personality, somebody that everybody loved to be around, lived his life with integrity, and certainly is going to be missed.
Yeah. The race on Sunday, Fox dedicated the race to him. The drivers remembered him, many of them on the cars and the signs and everything. I hadn't been following it that closely. I knew he was sick. I didn't realize he had reached that critical point.
Yeah, he fought the good fight. He kicked it once. He beat cancer once, and then when it came back, I think it came back with a vengeance. So really cool that they did that tribute to him on Sunday, and it was fun to watch the different folks in the industry and the tributes they paid to Steve Burns. Again, man, he's such a special guy, and just our thoughts and prayers are with his family during this difficult time.
Now to the race on Sunday. Took him a while. Boy, that's a track promoter's worst nightmare is to have that rain come and go. It took them 9 hours from start to finish to get it in, but they got it in, and NASCAR was determined to get their fans a checkered flag finish of some sort.
Yeah, it's really important for us as race promoters and NASCAR in general to give our fans what they paid for, right? So they paid for a 500-mile race on Sunday, and doggone it, NASCAR did everything in their power to make that happen. And I applaud NASCAR and Bristol Motor Speedway for sticking it out. If you looked at the weather report on Sunday morning, you wouldn't have, or I certainly wouldn't have guessed that they would have even gotten cars on the racetrack. NASCAR and the tracks and the competitors all work closely together to make sure that everybody's on the same page and we have a really good game plan. Luckily, Bristol, a lot like Darlington, has lights, so they have the ability to run into the night. And man, what an exciting race. It's 500 miles or 500 laps at Bristol is tough. And they put on one heck of a show. No,
they certainly do. And Matt Kenseth gets the win for the Gibbs team. And Jimmy Johnson with a busted-up car somehow gets to second. Jeff Gordon had another strong showing. But I think in terms of teams, besides your winner, the Stewart-Haas team with Stewart finishing sixth and with Stewart finishing sixth, yes, and Patrick finishing ninth, boy, they had to feel good about what they did.
Yeah, and absolutely. The fastest two cars didn't even finish. The 4 car certainly had the speed that it has on a weekly basis, and the 41 car, Kurt Busch, end of the race seemed to be the car to beat, but they pitted with 30 laps to go to get tires, which turned out to be the wrong move. But
Mhm.
all 4 cars had speed. It's really great to see Danica Patrick have success. That's 2 top 10 finishes in 3 races for that team, and she's 13th in points. And we're not talking about 13th in points 2 or 3 races into the season. We're almost a quarter way through the regular season, and she's sitting, in the 13th spot. That's really impressive, and just shows that she's really making progress in the Sprint Cup Series.
Yeah. What about her progress? What do you see? Is her driving better? Is the team itself overall better this year? What are you seeing there?
Well, I think what they're doing is they're making mediocre days good days, and they're making good days better days.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what it takes to win championships and to compete for wins, is taking a 5th place car and running 2nd and taking a 15th place car and running 10. And I think that's what she's starting to figure out, that these races are marathons. You don't have to do it all in one lap. It's a lot of give and take, and they certainly are learning that. I think that she's getting a better feel for these race cars. I feel like her and the crew chief are really starting to communicate well. So it's really good to see Danica have success. She's somebody that everybody knows. She's a polarizing figure, and for her to have success, it helps everybody in the sport.
So 6 drivers have wins. So 6 drivers are in the chase right now. And who do you foresee of the winless being the next to break through?
Well, 41 of Kurt Busch has shown a lot of speed each and every week he's been back in that race car. And I expect those guys to get back to victory lane here in the near future. The 1 car of Jamie McMurray and the 42 have both shown speed each and every week, and I expect one of those 2 guys to get to victory lane. And I'm going to be honest, the 14 car, who had a abysmal season last year, just nothing good could happen for him. It's really starting to show signs of improvement in speed. So I'd love to see Tony Stewart get a win and lock himself into the chase.
All right. What's happening over Darlington Way these days?
Man, we got a lot going on. It seems like we have this weekend we have one of our movie nights. We're kicking up Turn 3 Theater. It starts on Friday. Gates open at 6. We're showing the Lego movie starting at dusk. And then on May 9th, we're having a really cool deal. We're having a concert, 3 bands, 1 night, Saturday evening. Outshine, which is a local country band, is going to headline it. But all the proceeds go to the Darlington County Education Foundation, which we're really proud of, that we're associated with that group. They do a lot of great things for the kids in our community and really help propel the education system to the next level. So I really encourage people to come out. 3 bands, gates open at 5, and they'll be playing great country music all night.
That sounds great. I've heard a lot of good things. I listen to country music a lot. I listen to stations out of Nashville on XM, and they talk a lot about Outshine. Apparently, that's a group that's up and coming.
Yeah, and they're from South Carolina. And then we have Radio Romance, who's also signed by the same label as Outshine in Nashville. And they live in Nashville and are fantastic. So they'll be here. And then John Stone, who a local guy was in Tootsie's, if you know anything about Lower Broad in Nashville. He was in Tootsie's one night, and he heard John Stone. So he found a way to get in touch with him, and he'll be opening it up on that May 9th. So we're really excited about all the things we got going on at the racetrack. Our Freedom Fest on July 4th, we announced that Sister Hazel, nationally recording artist, is going to be headlining that event. So we got a lot of exciting things before we gear up for races.
All right, real quick, have you decided on who will sing the national anthem?
Man, we're working on it. We had somebody locked and loaded, and then they canceled out. So we're hopefully going to have our pre-race concert and our national anthem all locked and loaded here in the next couple of weeks, and I'd love to make that announcement on the show.
I suggest Lee Bryce, Sumter native Lee Bryce.
Man, we're trying. We're trying to get. We've reached out to Darius Rucker. We've reached out to Edwin McCain and Lee Burton. And man, we're just not having a ton of luck because we're on Labor Day weekend.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of those folks are already booked doing different things, but we're hustling.
Lee Bryce got Song of the Year in the AMC Awards this past weekend. Thank you so much, Chip, and of course Lee, former walk-on football player at Clemson, and has gone on to a tremendous country music career. Chip Wild from Darlington with us here on Sports Talk. Back in a moment.
Hey,
right, back on Sports Talk presented by the Palmetto Project. Call 888-998-4646 to enroll in a health plan and avoid paying next year's tax penalty. Again, that number, 888-998-4646. We've had a very busy show. We've got time now for your phone calls. If you'd like to join in to comment on some of the interviews or anything else that we talked about tonight, 800-956-7266 is the number. Love to hear from you. Email talkback@sportstalksc.com, on Twitter @sportstalksc. That's how you can reach us. Our lines are open if you want to join us on the program. Some emails from our good friend Yarkey. What's the status of Travis Blanks? He's a big Clemson fan. What's the status of Travis Blanks? Held him out of contact in the spring, getting better, with the knee, hoping to have him available this fall. He asks, do you think Clemson has a legit chance with defensive linemen Dexter Lawrence, Rashawn Gary, and Niles Pickney? And I would say yes, reasonably solid chance with all three. Do you think one of Clemson's tailbacks might transfer or move to another position? He said, I think C.J. Davidson and C.J. Fuller should move to cornerback. Fuller has played some defense in his high school career, but they loved him at running back in the spring.
Mm-hmm.
He really stood out, really came on. They are deep at that position, but all it takes is one or two injuries, and that depth becomes very thin. So I don't foresee anything like that happening in the near future.
What freaks you out about a lot of teams is you think injuries are spread around, but I guarantee you each year it's one position that gets hit by two or three people getting injured.
And one more question from Yarkey. What are your thoughts on running back choice redshirting? Well, it all depends on how quickly he comes back from his knee injury. If he can play, remember what he gives you. He gives you that Wildcat option because he was very good running the Wildcat for Clemson last year before he was hurt. So just going to have to wait and see. There's no reason to rush him because they do have all that depth at running back. But if he's healthy and ready to go and they see a way to use him in the offense, especially in the Wildcat, wouldn't be surprised if they put him in there. Baseball, Presbyterian beats Upstate 16-11.
Oof.
Yeah. PC had 19 hits and improved to 23-18 and will host Coastal Carolina this weekend in the final home series of 2015. Meantime, USC's taking a 1-0 lead on Furman. The Gamecocks scored a run top of the fourth. Arendis flying out to left field, sacrifice fly, scoring Cone to put the Gamecocks up 1-0 on Furman. Gamecocks have one run on one hit. Furman no runs on two hits. In Athens, it's still 4-0. Georgia leading Clemson 4-5-1 for the Bulldogs, 0-1-2 for the Tigers. So just when you started to feel good about things, Clayton Schmidt has now come on to pitch for Clemson. They have taken Kerner out, and Kerner went 2 innings, allowed 5 hits, 4 runs, but only 1 was earned. He struck out 2, and he walked 1, and Clayton Schmidt has now come on to pitch for the Tigers. So you are up to date on the baseball happenings there. A day of many big stories with Blackshear having his case resolved in his favor. That's great news for Blackshear and for South Carolina. The High School League Executive Committee taking the action that it took today, and Demetrius Henry announcing that he will transfer from South Carolina. I wonder where he will end up. I wonder if he will stay in a high major league. He was very heavily recruited coming out of high school. South Carolina felt very good about getting him.
Return maybe to Miami.
I don't know. I'd still like to know. I don't know if we'll ever find out on the record, what he and Shepard did to draw the ire of Frank Martin and get suspended like they did. If you're a school receiving either one of these guys, if Shepard is going to be transferring as well, we don't know that yet. But if you're a school receiving these guys, you certainly want to know the reasons for their suspension. Meant to mention this last night when it came out, didn't get around to it, but I'll mention it now. South Carolina Athletic Hall of Fame has announced the special awards that will be handed out at their induction ceremony, May 11th in Columbia. The Jacobs family of Clinton will receive the Bobby Richardson Sportsmanship Award. USC women's basketball coach Dawn Staley will receive the Willie Jeffries Ambassador for Sports Award. Sonny Dickinson of Columbia will receive the Dom Fushi Leadership in Action Award. Warren Pepper of Charleston will receive the Herman Helms Media Excellence Award. We've got one more to tell you about in a moment. That final award winner from the South Carolina Athletic Hall of Fame is Presbyterian basketball coach Greg Nybert. He will be honored with the Doc Blanchard Athlete Citizen Award. So congratulations to those 5. The new inductees, of course, going into the Hall of Fame: Terry Allen, Kip Bunknight, Joe Cabry, Ben Coates, Bruce Murray, Jimmy Satterfield, and Les Timms. And that's coming up May 11th.
I thought you were going to say Coach Nybert was getting the Road Warrior Award because Presbyterian would go anywhere.
Yes.
In their fledgling days of starting that Division I program and play anybody.
They still do. They still play at one of the most difficult road non-league schedules of anybody in Division I. Georgia still leading Clemson 4-0. They're going to the 4th. Furman has tied it up with South Carolina. Olmsted, a double down the right field line that scored a run. It's 1-1, Furman and South Carolina. Furman now with 3 hits. They're playing in the they're going to the 5th inning, I do believe. And 1-1, Furman and South Carolina up at Fluor Field in Greenville. All right. That's been a very busy show. Hope that you've enjoyed everything that we have brought to you tonight. We will have more good stuff coming up for you tomorrow night, and we'll see what kind of things develop, and we'll bring it to you here on the program. One thing I know we will have tomorrow night is Chad Holbrook. He is scheduled to be with us at 6:30 tomorrow night. talk about this game with Furman and also talk about the upcoming weekend series against Tennessee as the Gamecocks battle to stay away from the play-in game at the SEC tournament, which is quickly approaching. The Gamecocks only have 4 more league series, and right now they are 8-10 in league play. The bottom 4 teams will play on that Tuesday of the SEC tournament for the right to advance to the main draw. Right now, South Carolina would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. They're tied for the 7th most wins with 8 right now. So there's still time to move up. There's also time to move down.
Well, it'll be interesting this year if they right the ship that they struggle in the middle of the season and they finally do something in the tournament, because even when they were winning great guns and even during those 2 national championships, they come into Hoover, have a cup of coffee, and just go back home.
Maybe they'll have a different sense of urgency in Hoover, and it will lead to some wins for them in Hoover. All right. Thank you, Pro. Thank you, Steak Man, world's best sports talk producer. Just ask him. And thanks to all of you who joined us tonight around the states. Always glad to have you with us. Have a great night. We'll see you tomorrow night here on Sports Talk.